Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for stopping by, and welcome to part 4 in this series of the rationalisation, those that get to stay, those that get to go. Not far off finishing now. There are quite a few odds and ends lurking, you know, some mounted plants that are not Dendrobiums or Telonias to look at. Yeah, there's a few oddities to still pick up on, and that'll probably be the last one. And don't get me wrong, just because it's the last one and it's the oddities, you know, the bits left over, there's actually some very interesting stuff will go in there, because they're oddities, you know, plants that I've only got one of and things like that. So, you know, there will be some interest there. And I've had quite a few requests now to do culture type videos, so that goes on the list of things to do in the future. I'm after a list of suggestions, ideas to do videos, and the idea of picking on a genus and gathering all the plants of that genus together that I've got and going over each one and how I look after them, the changes in the seasons, watering, feeding, you know, what I've got them potted in, all that sort of stuff collected together on a genus basis does actually sound quite interesting. Now, it's not going to make a very interesting video if I've only got one of a certain genus, but there are some that I've got quite a few of that I could do that with. So that's a suggestion I will take up. Any more suggestions? Gratefully received. But let's get on with part 4. I just thought I'd show that view. This is like as the sun is just about to disappear over the roof. And this is the reason why that shade netting came off the end. You know, those plants on that end, on those high shelves, are now getting that last little hour of good light when the sun decides to shine. It's flipping freezing today, but the sun was out. And in here, the temperature outside doesn't matter. If the sun gets on the glass, it warms up. It saves on the heating bill. Yay! Okay, let's get on with part 4. Right, so move on to this shelf next. That's a right mix of motley plants, that is. Just while I'm there, look, Berryoda's got some buds on that are going to open in the not too distant future. That was one of the plants that was in the giveaway. Yeah, see, if you'd won and chosen that one, you'd have some blooms soon, but then they'd have had to make it in the post. Right, motley crew. This is a giant. It's a tatty looking object. It got bad bugs. So these leaf marks are bug marks. My fault. It got stuck up the back because it wasn't in bloom and got neglected. The latest growth had a bit of damage on the pseudo bulb. That was me when I repotted it. I knocked it a bit. But anyway, the latest leaves on the latest bulbs are clean. So, you know, it's recovering. But it does have the most massive pseudo bulbs. This is Catatanthe, and it has those beautiful autumn orangey brown coloured blooms that are just gorgeous. So tatty plant or not, you get to stay. In theory, it's capable of blooming on both sides of a pseudo bulb, but I've only ever got it to bloom on one. Yeah, and I had to cut quite a bit of this plant away when I repotted it because some of the pseudo bulbs were rotting. So it's sort of recovering, but you know, that was the last pseudo bulb. It bloomed on that. That bloom was in videos for months because it lasted so long. It was, you know, just one of those that got picked up in nearly every video. And I'm hoping this next bulb will do the same. So that gets to stay because of its colours and, yeah, just the size of the flower spike and the sheer number of blooms that it gets and the colours. I can't remember whether it's fragrant or not. I'll just stick that down there for now as I... Hang on, let me just pop the camera down and I'll pick it up again. There we go. It's just, that is a two-handed plant. I can't put that plant back on the shelf with one hand because it has to sort of come in from here and get lowered down in. Otherwise I bend the leaves if I do that. So yeah, two-handed plant, that one. What else we got then? This is a strange one. This is a Dendrobium that looks a bit tatty, and when I got it, it was in a state, but I won it in a raffle. So, you know, I didn't pay for it. It's a strange plant. But it has beautiful little orange blossoms on, a bit like the Stardust Firebird, but smaller and more delicate. And it's recovering. And a lot of those old canes are probably never going to bloom again, and it needs cutting back. But I need to wait and see where it's going to push out new growths from to work out which parts of the plant can go. But it did push up some new growths, and they're not too bad. So it gets to stay. It's unusual. No name. The name it had on the tag was cobblers, basically. It said it was Dendrobium Aya, A-Y-A something or other, and Google had never heard of that word. So that's cobblers. That's not what it's called. There's no such plant that Google's never heard of. Anyway, on to that. Now, I was on about my brassadas. That's the other one. That's Mivida. Now, that's not a good plant. It's got a nice new growth on it, and it's plenty big enough it will bloom. But it doesn't seem to want to grow a decent root system this time, having been repotted. So that, out of the two, the Orange Delight and the Mivida, that's the one that I'll probably get rid of because it's not such a good plant. So you're probably to go. Probably. I do like my brassicas, but, you know, I haven't got room for all of them. Now this one gets to stay. This is Shari Baby. Everybody should have a Shari Baby. And as Shari Babies go, that's not a bad one. It's got some lovely plump pseudo-bulbs on it. It's actually grown a reasonable root system, and it's got quite a few new growths. So, on the grounds that you just have to have a Shari Baby. The fragrance is gorgeous. So that one gets to stay. And that should be a two-handed job as well, really. But you see what I mean about bending the leaves? But I can get that one in there. There we go. Right. So that's the biggies. And then I use those to shade some of the others that don't need quite such bright light. Now that's another Dendrobium phalaenopsis type. I've got a feeling they've had a name change. Because the actual species, Dendrobium phalaenopsis, I think is called something else now. So all those phalaenopsis type Dendrobium hybrids that you've got are probably not called that anymore. But I can't be bothered messing about with it at the moment. They're unnamed hybrids as far as I'm concerned. That'll do. But that one, out of all my ones of this type, that's the one that's probably doing the best. There's some nice new growths coming on that, and there are signs of some new roots growing. So out of those, if I'm going to keep some and get rid of some, that's a definite one to stay because it's growing well. And they all have similar blooms on if you think about it. Purples and pinks and stuff. Now, what have we got here? I've forgotten what that is. Oh yeah, that's another phalaenopsis. That's actually got a name. That's Polar Star. But when that blooms, that is incredibly similar to that. Which plant would you keep if you had to choose? It's no contest, is it? That's not a strong plant. But the latest two growths aren't bad. You know, so we'll wait and see. But the blooms are so similar as to not warranting both of them. And in fact, there's a third one that's doing even worse. But I've got three that have the typical phalaenopsis shaped blooms. They're white and they've got a deep purple centre to them, to various degrees, you know. So, but they are the same colours, slightly different sizes and slightly different amounts of colour. But they are effectively almost the same. No point in having all of them. Now this thing, this was not bought to stay anyway. This was bought as one of my plant giveaways. This was the surprise plant. Now I know you're all going to hate me for this, but I don't really like that colour combination. And even though it's a good plant, it's probably going to go. I mean, it might be one my daughter wants. I might let her have that, but she won't be able to grow that very well. You know, her conditions are just not right for growing that. But it's a good plant. But I keep looking at those colour combinations. I'm not that keen. I'm really not. I keep looking at it. So the fact that it's a good plant, it's a sellable plant. Yeah, it should fetch. a reasonable price, this is the art of up and under, duck it in, it should fetch a reasonable price. So probably to go, more than likely. This is going nowhere. This is my Miltonia Sunset. Blooms, unusual colour combination, but they just work. And this is a good plant. That latest growth there has got a spike coming. The other spike's only just been cut off, and I think that was out 2 months, that spike. Good value for money, good blooms, and not a bad plant at all. Nice new growth coming there. Massive new growth coming up the middle there. That's the one with the spike on. So that gets to stay. It's one of my favourites, and yet it's difficult to say why. Let's put a purpley colour and some yellow and some orange together and make a flower. What do you reckon? Nah, it'll never work. Well, yes, it does on that one. And then this little thing, out of character, is a coleogyny, and it's Orcrasia, but it's actually been renamed Nitta, which I can actually say. So for once I'm pleased. But that's got to be given a chance because it's a young plant. I don't know how big that needs to get to bloom, but it gets given that chance. It's been recently repotted. It grew that nice new bulb in the last growing season. Yeah, bigger than the previous 2. Let's give it another growing season and see how we do. I mean, I'm not that good with coleogynes, but he gets to stay purely from an interest point of view. The flowers are highly scented and quite attractive, if I ever get any. But I think, given the size of the plant, it's probably a year or 2 away from blooming. But it gets that chance, because there was no point in getting it otherwise. Okay, that's that shelf done then. A little bit of a mixture on there. Well, the light's getting a bit low now, so this will probably be the last bit for today. But I'm doing lots of bits, and they'll all get put together as bits and bobs to make up a video. That's coleogyny cristata variety lemoniana, and it's in a huge basket. It's not a happy plant, but I'm keeping it because of its size. It has got new growths on it. It's got loads of old leafless bulbs that are a bit shriveled, but in theory that's going to bloom. Now, I don't know whether I'm looking after it properly, and therein lies another New Year's resolution for my orchids. Go and look up your plants, boy. Stop just thinking you know what you're doing with them. Go and find out for sure. And the coleogynes are probably my worst offenders, is because I just get some and I just stick them somewhere and hope they'll be okay. Well, I need to do more than hope. I need to find out. So that one stays. That's 2 offshoots. That one's dying. It's only got 1 new growth on it and it's not happy. So that's going to go. That may well just go under the hedge. That one is coming on. It did put up new growths and it is capable of growing much better next year. So it's to go. There's no point in having that and that and that. They're all the same. Yeah, so I'll keep that. That's coming onto a specimen sized plant, and that's to go, and that might go. I don't know whether I could offend somebody by offering that or just chuck it out. So that's those. That's my Maxillaria tenuifolia. That's a beastie. That's got to come out of that basket. That media's breaking down. Every time I water that, it's niffy. But they have a strange rooting mechanism. They extend upwards, so you get like a bulb which pushes out a growth at the side. That extends upwards and produces another growth with sheaths. Now the top growth, the root or roots for that top growth goes right down inside of those sheaths, down into the media. So there's roots on there that you can't see, and they're up in the air. They're inside those sheaths. So that will split into smaller plants very easily. I'd love to keep it, but it's got to come out of the basket. And when it comes out of the basket, it's probably going to get split into, I can see 3 distinct divisions there. So there'll be some divisions of that to go. I've got several of these lying around, and my best one is on the mount. That's the one that's going to do the best. To get that to grow really well, it's got to go up in the roof. That's half my roof gone with one plant, so no. I don't like it that much. So it'll get split. I may keep one part of it, but it'll get moved on. So that's I'll do the other odds and sods down there at another time, but I just wanted to get those biggies, oh my back, out of the way. And that empty shelf there and that bit there, they're over here. And these are nearly all two-handed jobs, they're biggies. That's why they're down on the bottom shelf, really. Old-fashioned odontoglossums are one of my passions, probably alongside the tulumnias and things like that. So I have got some. I probably will get more if I see some nice ones, and those that I've got stay. It's as simple as that. This one was in bloom when I got it, and I was dubious about the plant because it had a tiny little pseudo bulb and a great big fat one that had a gorgeous flower spike on. If I've got a picture, I'll pop it up. But it's pushing a new growth. My job now is to try and get that new growth to be as big as that one and bloom. That's a, come on, turn round, this one-handed job. It's classed as Cymbidium, obviously, but it was Odontoglossums, the parents. It's Gold Coast times crossed with Stonehurst yellow. Beautiful blooms, love it, and it gets to stay simply because I like those plants. This is my only Odontoglossum species, and that's Navium, and that's a good plant. That's got new growths coming out in so many places it's difficult to even count them without putting it down. It's a good, strong, healthy plant. I haven't got a clue what's in that pot. It hasn't come out of the pot yet. It was in bloom when I got it. Stunning blooms, love them. Lovely, delicate, curly, white with red spots, if I remember rightly. Again, if I've got a picture, I'll pop it up. But that's going nowhere. That's a smashing plant. Love that one. Oh. Right, this biggie, this is an example of go away and find out how to look after it, Roger. Stop mucking about. It's a really good coleogyny, and the tag's gone missing. Where the hell's that gone? I'll have to put the name up. Whoops. Just slam the camera shut. You can tell the light's going. I'm starting to get clumsy now. But this one's pushing out some good roots. You can see the roots on the edge of the pot there from the new growth that side, and it's doing the same with the new growth that side. In my opinion, that is grossly over potted, but this was a split of a specimen plant from Burnham's Nurseries, and that's how they potted it. It's at least two plants in there. That's probably one there, and the other one goes that way. So they took two pieces off and put it in a big pot. And again, I don't know what's in the pot. It's never come out. It had only just been repotted when I got it, so it seemed silly to take it out of its pot. But it'll have to come out sometime. Now that's flowering size, but whether I can get it to flower or not, who knows? But another two-handed job, biggie. And these are my two McBeans. Old-fashioned Odontoglossums. These are going nowhere. One of these is special. This one, is this the yellow one? No, this is the special one. This is History, this plant. This was one of the first plants that came over in something like 1850 when I was young, and it started the Victorian craze, this plant. It's been renamed now. It's Oncidium Alexandriae, and this is a special cross because it was a named seedling. Yeah, that's how it started. So it was one that was good enough to get its own name, and then that was crossed back with the original species. So there aren't very many of these around for a start. If you think a named clone was only going to be one of a batch of seedlings that was then hybridized. So the seedlings that came from that there's not many around. It's quite special. And with the history behind that plant, not bloomed for me. I'm not going to dig around, but this latest growth here has actually got a spike down the base, so that's going to bloom. That's going to be special. This one was in bloom when I got it, so I know what that one looks like. This is another yellowy one. That is Golden Rialto. It's all in the name, you know. But that's got a nice new growth coming, so there's no reason why that won't bloom when it reaches maturity. And I'm hoping to just grow these on year after year after year. These two are quite special. I love my old-fashioned Odontoglossums. So I have to put the camera down now. These are all two-handed jobs trying to mess about with these. So that's that little section done. Whoops, forgot one. This goes in with that last section. Another large Coelogeny, beastie of a plant. Again from Burnham Nurseries. I got a feeling this might even be one of their own crosses, but it's Moriana. Beautiful blooms, if ever it does. Well, if I go and find out how to look after it, we might be able to get closer to getting it to bloom. But the latest two new growths over this side, both pushed out roots and are growing on sort of quite nicely. So again, it's a blooming sized plant, but it hasn't blooming well bloomed yet. And that may well be my own fault for not looking up how to look after it properly. What temperatures does this need? Should it be being rested in the winter? Is it a warm growing Coelogeny? They do exist. I mean, some of them need to chill right down to get them to bloom, literally sort of between 0 and 5 degrees. There's a multitude of variety of Coelogenies, and I have quite a few different ones in here, and I haven't got a clue whether they're getting looked after properly. So part of the New Year's resolution, don't do your homework. It's not like you're busy, you're retired, for God's sake. So I'm going to have to get on with that and try and give them my best and see how I get on. But that's a blooming sized plant, and in theory the two latest growths should bloom, but I haven't got a clue when. I don't know whether the spikes come out the top, whether they come out the bottom. I need to go and do some research. So an ongoing project to be done in the background. It's all information and knowledge is power as far as orchids are concerned. Closer you can get them to their ideal circumstances, the more likely you are to have healthy plants and nice blooms. So I'm going to have to get on with that this year. There's quite a few lurking around in here that I know so little about. I just hope they're being looked after properly, and hope's not good enough. You might be lucky, but then you might not. Okay, that's that little set done.